Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Johns Hopkins School of Education, School Administration, and Supervision virtual webinar. My name is Sion John. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Also here with me, I have my colleague from the Office of Admissions, and she will introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Tanya McMillan. I am an admissions coordinator here at the School of Education.
And lastly, also presenting today, we have Megan Wright, alumni of the program, and Dr. Annette Anderson, professor and faculty lead of the School Administration and Supervision program. And before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. Also, please take this time to make sure your mic is on mute and video is off. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please type your question in the chat box and we will read and answer your questions. Next, I would like to share the agenda for today's virtual webinar. We will kick off the presentation sharing an overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Then Dr. Anderson will go over program details. In addition, we have Megan Wright, alumni of the program, here with us, and she will share her journey here at SOE. And lastly, I'll wrap it up with admissions requirements and then go over financial aid and leave the floor open for questions at the end. And to start, we are one of 9 schools at Johns Hopkins University. We began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our own school in 2007. We are proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. For school enrollment, we have approximately 2,608 students and offer more than 30 graduate programs, which includes doctoral, master's, and graduate certificate programs. And we have approximately 121 full-time faculty members and a strong network of 22,000 SOE alums. And for faculty introduction, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Annette Anderson. Dr. Anderson is an assistant professor and faculty lead for the School Administration and Supervision program. She's a native of Baltimore and a graduate of Baltimore City Public Schools. She has served in a variety of school-based positions, including classroom teacher, teacher leader, and school administrator. At this time, I would like to hand the floor over to Dr. Anderson.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that all of you are here this afternoon to learn about our administration and supervision programs. I'm just really thrilled to have your participation today as we are learning about what it will take to be an effective school leader. And so we always start with this question about whether you are ready to lead. When you make the decision to start looking into admin and supervision programs, you're being challenged by what you're seeing in classrooms, what you're seeing in administrative offices, what you're seeing in district offices, maybe what you're seeing as a head of school or what you'd like to see in a lower head of school. So I think one of the things that we are challenged by is that we're in a situation currently where leadership is evolving because of what has happened with the coronavirus and the impact that it has had on our schools. And so we know that being an effective school leader in today's evolving educational environment requires knowledge, skills, and dispositions to make sound leadership decisions that are going to have lasting academic, social, and community impact. But it's how do you get to the place where you know that this is the right place for you to get the learning that you're going to need in order to be successful. So today I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and to then open ourselves up to some questions from our audience. We have a few different options in terms of our programs. We offer both a master's degree program in admin and supervision, as well as the online certificates in admin and supervision. And right now, I have to say that because of COVID, we have been offering all of our courses in a virtual environment. So even the courses that had been previously face-to-face have now become online. So that's something, if you had questions about, we can certainly talk about that at the end of this discussion, but I wanted to discuss that with you today and at least share that piece of information. And then lastly, I'll just say that we offer as well a certificate program for educational leadership in independent schools. And we are currently working on having a full master's program in educational leadership for independent schools. Thank you. Next slide, please. So, as I said a moment ago, the question that we have to ask ourselves when we think about school leadership is, are you ready? And we believe that the School of Education prepares school leaders and change agents who are ready as in reflective as practitioners, evidence-based as decision makers, applied technology integrators, diversity advocates, and experts. Yes, experts in the content. So we know that it takes all of these things together in order to have our candidates go out into the field and be successful. You're going to have the opportunity to hear from one of our candidates who was ready, who we are very excited to see sitting in the seat of leadership right now. I'm very excited to talk about this with you today, and then to have her share her experience as having been one of our stellar students, but knowing that there are multiple complex challenges in education communities today, we need to make sure that we are being reflective about that and bringing our best self to bear in this conversation. Thank you. Next slide, please. So first, I know that many of you want to work on the admin and supervision on the independent school leadership courses because you have career goals. You're thinking about your next step. You have had the opportunity to sit in the classroom seat, or maybe the counseling seat, or maybe in a different seat in your school. And now you've decided that you would like to move up. You have goals, you have aims. And this program is designed to prepare you for a variety of school roles, including head of school, school principal, assistant principal, department head, department lead, content specialist, instructional leadership team member, or others district-wide leadership roles, for example, special education, as a person. So you have lots of opportunities to advance your career once you have a certificate or a master's degree in admin and supervision. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about how we get to that today. Thank you. Next slide, please. Another question that I get quite a bit when people start looking at Hopkins is whether or not they belong here. Given the rigor of our program, a lot of people come as candidates or potential candidates and saying, well, you know, I went to this institution and I don't know whether or not I belong at Hopkins. Well, you absolutely belong at Hopkins. We know that our institution is internationally known for rigor and intellectual stimulation, and you're absolutely going to get that here. But what I would say about that is, while it is a challenging environment, our graduates also say that the robust classroom dialogue and the real life course activities put them at a distinct advantage over their peers as they apply for future positions. I hear from our graduates all the time who say, I remember this case study and I thought it was really impossible, but it really challenged me, or I used some of the work that I worked on in my portfolio as I went into an interview, and I was so glad that we had this work. So there's a lot of value in being a part of a program that's as rigorous as ours. In terms of value, we know that while our price point may seem a little bit higher initially than some other local institutions, we know that our programs are priced competitively with other nationally ranked universities, and that the lasting Hopkins credential has a lot of potential to put you ahead of the pack as you think about your future career choices. Third, we think you belong here because of the networks that are offered. In our alumni surveys, Hopkins graduates often reflect that the networks that they build while they're in our leadership programs are extremely helpful as they complete their candidacy, as well as when they're trying to navigate the job market. So many of our new candidates report that colleagues actually recommended the program to them, or that they heard about the program from a graduate of the program. And then in terms of diversity, the School of Education certainly values diversity. Our diverse student body is comprised of recent college graduates, ILT team members, classroom teachers, as well as experienced educators and counselors and content specialists. In particular, our online certificate frequently attracts candidates from around the world. So everywhere from Glenelg, Maryland to Georgia to Germany to Greece is where you'll find our ANS candidates. And this makes for wonderful diversity in terms of our online course discussions. So you won't get bored because you'll always be learning something about the context of education and educational leadership in particular in different spaces and places. Thank you. Next slide, please. Program options. So for those who have just their bachelor's degree, who are currently certified as teachers, our School of Education program offers a 39 credit face-to-face master's degree in administration and supervision. And candidates have up to 5 years to complete the program. That's one of the benefits of our program is its flexibility. So many people finish within 3 years by taking 2 classes a semester. However, the flexibility of our program means that if you decide that you want to take on an extracurricular activity at your school, and you don't want to take 2 classes in one particular semester, or if you decide that there's a big move coming up and you don't think that you can handle that and the stress of trying to get everything on your plate done, including coursework, and you want to put it off for one semester, we have a great degree of flexibility in our program so that you can have a window of 5 years to complete the master's program, because it is not a cohort-based program. It's a flexibly organized program where each student independently goes through their program plan to make their choices and their decisions about what works best for them. So it's highly individualized. In addition to our traditional face-to-face admin and supervision graduate certificate and master's degree programs, we also offer online certificates in the admin and supervision program area that's for our Teach for America candidates, for example. And again, with our online certificate program, that is 6 courses, and you have up to 3 years to complete all of our certificate programs. And one thing to note is that, as I said, we are building out our independent school leadership certificate to be fully online. And that we expect to start not this spring, but a little bit later in the summer and into the fall. So if you're interested in that, please see me and I can give you some further details on that. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so getting through the program. Here are some logistics about getting through the program. Typically, all of our courses are offered both online and face-to-face, except that because of COVID, we are not offering the face-to-face options at this time. And if you are interested in the face-to-face version of the program, please see me. We will be able to talk to you about when they expect that might come back. But for the time being, everything has been put into the online space. And the other thing I would say is that we offer our programs in the summer, the spring, and the fall. And except for one course in our ANS program, which is the internship, all of our courses are run through those 3 semesters. And another thing that I would also say is that we don't offer, as I said, the internship is not offered in the summer. The other thing I would say is that you are allowed to take up to 2 courses per semester. There are times when people will independently request to take a 3rd course because of special circumstances. So in those instances, we ask for our candidates to submit written permission to me in order to get approval to take a 3rd course in a semester. And then you have some students, because of the flexibility of the program, who choose to take 1 course a semester. So others choose to take 2. We frequently have candidates who have already been promoted into new roles who now need to get the certificate done as quickly as possible. And we try to help them to figure out how to do that sustainably. And one thing to think about as you're starting to plan for enrolling in a program of this magnitude is to think about having your site-based mentor, either your principal or your assistant principal, prepared to support you before the semester of your internship as your mentor, so that you can have some support for your work during the internship. And typically before each semester begins, this is not just for face-to-face candidates, we now have this online as well. All of our candidates participate in an online internship orientation during the semester before they begin their internship, to review all of the expectations of the internship, and what will happen with both you and your site-based mentor, as well as what you can expect from your instructor. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right, so we talked a little bit about the two certificate pathways. Both of them are designed to be very flexible. And so right now, as we offer just the online courses because of COVID, we again try to stress the flexibility of a program like that. So our courses are 8 weeks. Each course is 8 weeks. So if you wanted to, you could take 2 8-week courses at one time, or typically our courses will start, for example, in this semester, the course started at the end of January and it will go to mid-March. And then the second set of courses will start mid-March and go to the and into May. So each has an 8-week window. Our courses have 8-week windows, and that's part of why the curriculum is so robust. And so we try to have as much flexibility as possible built into that. And what's interesting is that since we have had the coronavirus, our courses fill up more regularly, a little bit earlier than they would have in the past. But I think it's just because we have more students who are now taking the online classes than we did a year ago. It was split a little bit more before. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is for our Teach for America partnership. If you're part of the Teach for America partnership, you typically take school law and effective leadership as electives. And if you take those 2 courses as electives, then you only have 4 more classes while you're enrolled in the TFA master's program here at Hopkins that you need in order to also get your certificate courses finished. And so you would follow this prescribed order, and having taken those first 2 courses as electives, and then taking O&A, Organization and Administration of Schools, with supervision and professional development, and then finally taking the curriculum course along with the internship, and then finishing that out as part of this partnership that we offer with TFA at Hopkins. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the bread and butter of our certificate program. These are the 6 courses that if you are interested in enrolling in a ANS certificate program, you will take all 6 of these courses. Organization and Administration of Schools, which is where you're looking at the school improvement planning process and thinking about an area that might be an opportunity and working through that as a final product. With school law, you're looking at the latest case law around schools and thinking through some of these legal decisions and what impact it has. And that's also something that every school leader really needs to understand before they step into the seat, because there are so many rulings that are happening relatively recently around school law. So there's lots of change to keep up with when it comes to school law. Effective leadership, I often tell candidates who are starting that effective leadership is the place to start, because this is like the cornerstone of our program, and that in order to do anything else in a school, you have to be an effective leader. So our program is designed to help you to think through that lens of this work. That course is followed, of course, by the Supervision and Professional Development course, which is where you're looking at the role of a school leader as a supervisor and thinking about how you support your staff and what services and support you need to provide in order to help your students to grow academically. Curriculum theory, development, and implementation is just like what it sounds. You're looking at the different pieces of curriculum, looking at the theory behind them, and figuring out how schools are adaptive to curricula and what school leaders need to do to ensure that the teachers and the staff and the students are all on the same page around expectations and moving through the content. And then finally, the internship is a space where candidates have an opportunity to go out into their schools and into their communities to act on the standards around school leadership and think about how they're going to assemble all of the skills and demonstrate capacity and demonstrate knowledge of these best practices around leadership. And the internship is meant to capture that in the portfolio, which is the final submission for this course. Thank you. Next slide, please. You can finish this course, I'm sorry, you can finish this program in 1 year. So for those of you who are thinking about trying to enroll and finish in 1 year, if you have questions about whether that's possible in February to still finish by the end of 2021, the answer is actually yes, because we, as I said, our courses are 8 weeks. And so our second band of 8-week courses for spring 2021 will start in the middle of March, towards the end of March. And so if you get all of your application materials in and you are admitted, then you would be allowed to register for some of these courses. So this is just a sample program plan to show you how you might organize your coursework to think about enrolling and finishing in 1 year. If you were to do this, you could enroll in organization and administration of schools, for example, and effective leadership, both for this spring semester. So both starting in March. And then you could enroll in 2 additional courses, supervision and professional development, as well as the school law class in the summer. And then you would only have in the fall to complete the final 2 courses, curriculum theory and the internship. Now, remember, the internship is not offered in the summer. It is offered either in the spring or the fall. We do not offer the internship in the summer because you are required to collect a particular number of hours for the internship. And it is impossible, based on the way that most schools are organized, for people to successfully attain those hours in a robust way. So we don't offer that in the summer. Thank you. Next slide, please. So again, I just mentioned about our 8-week course format, that it's highly interactive. You're going to meet students from all around the country as well as the world in your courses. And so we have balanced that with some whole group, team, as well as individual activities and assignments every week. So you're going to get a whole different menu of activities to engage in the coursework every week. It doesn't necessarily, I don't know if it requires a high degree of comfort with technology, but you know, most people are pretty facile these days with the internet if you have social media. So I think, you know, getting through the coursework is not an issue, because we use Blackboard and TK20 as well as Web 2.0. But most people, if you have social media, you're fairly well integrated into this technology already. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is a sample course plan, a sample program plan about how you would go through organizing your journey through all of your courses. This is for the master's degree program. And as you can see, we have a first sequence of concentration requirements and then a second concentration, but you still have the flexibility of deciding when you want to take those courses. And so the master's degree is 39 credits. And then on the next, I think the next page, if you can go to the next page, you'll see that there's the same format. Oh, this is about the internship. So it's the same format for those who are going through the certificate program. Okay, so let's go again over the internship. The internship is designed for people who are employees of public school districts and have their certification with 27 months of satisfactory teaching performance. And you should have those 27 months before you go to apply for your credential in order to have it approved. We're authorized through the Maryland State Department of Education. So that 27 months of satisfactory teaching on your certificate is important in order for MSDE to approve you to get the Admin 1. The internship is undertaken as the final capstone course in this sequence, and candidates typically complete the semester-long internship in their current school with the permission of their Admin 1 certified school leaders. So you should talk to your principal We find that most people who are very successful with the program have already spoken to their school leader when they start our program and not just when they get ready for their internship, because things can change, school leaders can change, you can change schools. So we ask you to identify your mentor from your current site before you receive permission to begin the internship. And we at Hopkins will assign you, once you're registered for the course, we will assign you a site supervisor who will meet with you as well as your designated mentor during the semester-long internship. So all the rest of the courses are 8 weeks, but the internship is actually for a full semester. And part of that is because you have to capture 200 hours for the internship. And then both the mentor and the site supervisor must successfully evaluate your performance during the internship in order to complete the program requirements. And our internship is aligned with the PCEL standards of 2015 and the NELP standards of 2018. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right, so when you think about some of the internship assessments, a question we often get is, what do I have to do for the internship? Well, here are some of the activities that you will be required to successfully complete as a part of the internship. It includes a core beliefs reflection assignment. As I mentioned a moment ago, you have a 200-hour requirement in terms of an effort log with all of the activities that you do during the semester of your internship. There's a clinical supervision reflection to demonstrate mastery of clinical supervision. Your mentor does an assessment. You also do an organization assignment for your portfolio, then to present that. And then you have a reflection paper for the internship portfolio. So those are all of the internship assessments. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is the certificate for independent schools that I was talking about. So we offer these courses and we expect that by spring of 2022, all of those courses will be online and available. We do have, I think 2 of them are currently available for this summer of 2021, but the rest of them should be ready in a different, they'll all be ready to be offered by the spring of 2022. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it over to one of my absolute favorite students. She was an absolute wonderful student to have. She always brought such amazing questions to our course discussions, and I could not be more proud of her, as she, was very thoughtful about her decisions in terms of her career. We talked for many, many hours as she was planning what she wanted to do and where she wanted to go and how she wanted to grow. And so to see her now sitting in an assistant principal role fairly quickly, it's not a surprise. But many of our candidates are just like Mallory. They come through with so many questions and such rigor in their expectations of how they want to move forward with their career decision making. So you'll have an opportunity to talk to her and ask her questions, but you'll get to hear from her perspective on the program now. So welcome, Mallory.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson. Hi, everyone. I'm so delighted to be with you all today. As you all can see, my name is Mallory Wright. I attended Johns Hopkins from August 2015 and graduated in May 2018. And I was a part of the School Administration and Supervision Master's Program. So I did do the entire master's program. I had a wonderful experience at Johns Hopkins. I did attend part-time while teaching full-time. I was teaching 4th grade at the time, and I did make a shift from Baltimore City Schools to Anne Arundel County Public Schools at the time during my program. But I really loved my program. I speak very highly of Johns Hopkins because I do love how they're focused on equity and how much reflection we did during our program. When I think about what I think a graduate program should be and how school leaders need to think, I think that Johns Hopkins is at the lead of the pack. And I truly believe that because being a leader, definitely in 2021, you have to be reflective about your practice. And I love that at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Anderson was one of our many wonderful professors that made sure that we examined our biases, our stereotypes, and work to overcome them. That is so important to this role. It's so important to know the things you need to work on in your growth areas constantly so that you're able to serve those who you're working with. And so I love Johns Hopkins also because I thought the coursework was very engaging. I honestly cannot, say that there was any class that I disliked. I loved all of them. And one of the most valuable pieces was the network that I was able to build. To this day, it's been about 3 years now. I still talk to so many of my classmates. We are still colleagues, we're still friends. And something that Dr. Anderson said to me at the end of our program was how important it is for us to lift as we climb. And so definitely the network is invaluable. You are connecting with colleagues. You never know who can help you figure out what's next for you, who can help guide you in those ways. And Dr. Anderson didn't mention, but I actually am the assistant principal at the school where her children go. And so it is no coincidence. I just think that that is amazing that we're able to cross paths again. But I for sure would advocate 100% for Johns Hopkins, and I would love to answer any questions. I'm checking my notes here, but that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you all. 100% I was prepared when I left. I currently am pursuing my doctorate in education at Morgan State, and I went right after I finished Johns Hopkins. So this program has so many wonderful highlights, and it's given me so many great experiences and contacts. And so I would strongly suggest it and am open for any questions. Thank you all so much for having me speak. It's an honor.
Thank you, Mallory, for joining us today and sharing with us your experience here at SOE. So now we're going to continue by going over the application requirements. Applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on our website. The application fee is $80. You will need a current resume or CV along with a 500-word essay. Please visit our website on the admissions webpage to learn more about the essay portion of the application. Next, you will need 2 letters of recommendation. And if you're unable to have 1 academic letter of recommendation, we will accept 2 professional references. And lastly, we need all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. Again, this is from all post-secondary institutions that you have attended. And please note that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are currently experiencing heavy delays in mail received from the U.S. Postal Service and some private mail service carriers. Please order your transcripts as early as possible, especially if your school only mails paper transcripts. There are a few additional steps you need to take in order to complete the application process if you're an international student. You must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score, and if your degree was completed outside of the US, you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. Additional information can be found on our website. The tuition for the 2020-2021 academic school year is $882 per credit for online courses and $833 per credit for face-to-face classes, and this excludes textbook, course materials, graduation fee, and registration fee. And please note, additional fees apply and are charged separately from tuition. We encourage you to view our tuition and fees page on our website for the most up-to-date information. And if you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. We do offer a very limited number of partial need-based scholarship for fall and spring semesters. Please visit our website if you have any questions relating to financial aid. Here on the slide, we have some important contact information. Any admissions-related questions, please reach out to Ms. Tanya McMillan. And any program-related questions, please reach out to Ms. Liesl McNeil. And then, of course, our Dr. Annette Anderson's email address is on this page. Thank you for attending today's virtual webinar. At this time, we would like to open up the floor for questions. Dr. Anderson, and also for Mallory, I received a private message from a student asking, hi, I plan on studying part-time and will be working full-time. Can you share with me how many hours I should allocate per week on coursework?
Yes, thank you. That's an excellent question. And Mallory, you certainly can answer from a more practical standpoint. So we say that, the work is expected to take about 10 hours a week between the readings and the actual course engagement and then writing your papers and submitting your work. So it's not all in one sitting, especially because it's online. But to be able to think about preparation and then active engagement and then the reflection, it's about 10 hours a week for those 8, because these are 8-week classes. Traditional courses are, 15-week classes. So it's a little bit more compressed. Mallory, what would you say?
Sure, Dr. Anderson, I would agree with that. But I'd say to keep in mind that because you are a practitioner that is also working while you're studying in school, you're using a lot of the experiences that you're having in your day-to-day towards your schoolwork. And so you'll see that, and I honestly use it therapeutically. It was almost like I had the opportunity to, explain phenomena that I was seeing in my school and, things that were going on with my leadership. And so you'll start to see a lot of your work merge, but I would definitely say try to go ahead and put aside about 10 hours a week to help balance that. It should definitely work out.
And I would also follow that up to say that, Mallory's absolutely right that you're going to be able to use the coursework and make connections from your day to day, but that's part of the learning that we want you to have. So you're going to be talking to other practitioners from the field and comparing notes, which makes it fun when you're learning about what it looks like in, if you're in Washington, D.C. and you're learning from someone in Seattle, Washington, there's a completely different framework and structure to how schools are organized, but then there's some constants. And so being able to compare notes, that's part of the journey. But all of our candidates are, engaged mostly in some kind of work. So they're all doing a full-time role and then taking these classes as well.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Another question that we received privately is regarding the internship. So the question is, does the internship have to be done exclusively at my workplace, or can I choose another location?
Well, I will say that it's my preference that you do it in your workplace. And I'm going to say that you don't absolutely have to, but students that try, I just will say this out of my many, many years of experience, that people who do try to use different locations, it becomes cumbersome. Part of the challenge of this internship is getting it done. You want the best internship is a done internship. And especially as you are getting towards the end of your internship, Mallory can talk a little bit about, trying to get all those end of the semester papers done and logging all those hours for your artifacts. It is much easier if you're doing that in your current location than it is if you're trying to travel to a location. Remember that I said it's 200 hours. So you have 50 hours of observations. That's 50 hours of going to board meetings and attending PTA meetings. But then you've got 150 hours where you're being asked to lead a special education meeting or lead an RTI kind of intervention. You're going to be asked to do some very active things. It's much easier for you to accomplish those things in your current setting than it is when you are trying to go someplace else. And Mallory, would you agree with that? Because I remember even you were thinking about, as I recall, you were like, should I move schools or should I think about changing? And I was like, sit tight until you finish, because I just want you to be successful and finish strong.
Yes, and I totally moved schools and it was difficult. I remember thinking back now, I was in a new context and it was difficult because knowing the context, knowing your school climate, knowing how the pieces work. And I was in a new school district, so it was definitely difficult. So I would definitely suggest that you're in the context that you've been in and you're able to really, wrap things up there, just because of so many things you have to do. It really is pretty intensive. And so you do want to make sure you're, in a place where you're still able to prioritize your schoolwork and your coursework, as well as the internship, as well as your full-time job as well.
Thank you. And one other thing I'd add about that is people who sometimes want to move, it's because they are not getting along with their principal but this is, one semester of your life is not going to define the rest of your life. So this is part of being a leader. You are going to have to follow people that you don't always love, but you're going to have to learn to work with successfully. So this is part of that. So I will say that it's not that there aren't situations where people have not successfully done their internship from another location. In my experience, I just think that it's far easier. If you can't work with your principal, try to find an assistant principal or someone else who has an Admin 1 certification so that they can support you. But try as much as you possibly can. My advice is to try and stay in the location where you are, because it's much easier than trying to find. Because I will tell you something else. We also have challenges with people that when they're moving they're going to move to a different school, and then they have to start building all those relationships all over again. So that can be a challenge too, as Mallory alluded to. So it's just something to think about.
Thank you both. Next question that we have from Courtney. What are some ways that students in the online courses build connections and get to know each other?
I'll answer first again, and then, Mallory, I'm sure you can talk about that because, you are still in touch with the members of your graduation year and beyond. And I think that that's really special and important. But, the courses are built for you to network as you are going through the assignments. So there are some assignments where you are going to need to do group work to complete them, particularly in curriculum theory and supervision, as you work to get those assignments done. But the weekly blogs that you will participate in, we require that you are reading each other's blogs and responding to those, and we're looking at that in the instruction from the instructional side. So I would say that's one way. And then, I think another way is that, we have these synchronous sessions, even in the online courses, where you can talk to one another and talk about what's going on. I had one yesterday or 2 days ago, just talking about, what COVID has meant for how schools are getting led, which is, it's been a crazy time for people in school leadership because they've had to just keep changing. There's no constant right now in our schools around leadership because everybody's pivoting just rapidly to really meet the demands of the day. So I would say that, it's important to make those connections, and many people keep those connections long after they are gone. And Mallory, you can speak a little bit more, probably better, to that whole phenomenon.
Sure, Dr. Anderson. So I primarily did the majority of my program face-to-face. But I would just say that in any level of graduate education, but especially in education, because your colleagues are practitioners like you are and typically doing what you're doing, just going that extra mile, making sure you're exchanging contact information, making sure that you are keeping in touch. Because at the end of the day, you do that's your network, and your network is your net worth. So you want to make sure that you are talking to your classmates. And I, definitely at the level of education I'm pursuing at this point, I am convinced that graduate education is not meant to be done in silos. It is meant to be done with your colleagues, because that's how you learn, learning about other contexts, learning about other things. And so you always want to make sure that you are taking that extra step to make sure you're learning and understanding others so that you can learn from it and so that you can gain from that. So just definitely make that extra step. Connecting and things like LinkedIn and other social medias are really helpful now that we have to help with that. But making sure that you're building that community is important. And then also, if you just need someone to ask about what the homework is, like just on that very level of just making sure that we're all on the same page in class and we're all hearing the same thing. It's just good to build that community as well.
Thank you, Mallory and Dr. Anderson. Another message that was sent, what is the minimum of credits I need to take per semester?
So as I said earlier, so each course is 3 credits. You can take 1 credit per semester. One course per semester, which is 3 credits, or you can take 2 classes, which is 6 credits. So it's flexible to reflect your own determination to get finished.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. The next question we have is, I am not a Maryland resident. Can you share more about the certification process to become an assistant principal for out-of-state students?
Yes, that's a great question. So we are authorized, we are accredited by the Maryland State Department of Education. So when you finish your coursework, you will get a stamp on your transcript saying that you have met all of the requirements for the Admin 1. You then would have to take that stamped transcript either to MSDE here in Maryland, where we're authorized, and to get your Admin 1, or you can take it to your own state. Now, every state has their own requirement. So some people go through MSDE to get their Admin 1, and then they use reciprocity to be able to transfer that back into their state. So that might be one of the ways that you are able to actually get certified in your own state. You could also take the coursework and then just take it to your state. But there's no, as I said, every state has their own requirements, and you may be required to take additional coursework. So I would advise you to look at your state's website about certification to see what their particular requirements are, and ask about reciprocity from Maryland.
All right, it looks like there are no more questions. Thank you, Mallory and Dr. Anderson, for a wonderful presentation today. Thank you again, everyone, for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We look forward to hearing from you. And I want to show this slide again with the contact information. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone. Please let us know if you have any questions. And to Mallory, I want to say thank you. It's so good to see you.
Likewise, Dr. Anderson, great to see you as well. We'll have to connect soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Have a great evening, everyone. Good night.
Take care. Good night.